2023. And then I think at that time, my predecessor, Dr. Asrafil Dianita, is the one who hosts you and all members from the embassy. When Pak Agung told me that we're going to have a visit from Palestine, I was really excited. Even though this is the end of the semester, which is most of our students already left the university, we still managed to invite some of our colleagues, not only our students, but also students from different universities, and also our media partners, and also society groups that really focusing on Palestine and has been a long supporters of the Palestinian independent and also Palestinian people. And I was struck when Pak Agung told me that we will have a discussion on the interim constitution. I believe this is something new for us because last time I heard it was in August 2025 that the president of the Palestine decided to set up a committee to discuss this constitution. So I'm really excited to hear the new constitution, the interim constitution, what will it be, and what will be basically described in it. And I always say that this constitution is not only a legal document, it is also a statement that the independence of Palestine, that their right to become an independent state, is something that in the heart of Indonesia, in the people of Indonesia, we always support it. So I do hope we can learn more on this constitution, and I believe everyone that present in here will support this initiative, and it's not only on the government level, but also on the society level. So I'm looking forward, and once again, thank you, and I hope we have a great lecture and also discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Broto Wardoyo, for the warm welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, now we will proceed to the opening speech that will be conducted by His Excellency Dr. Zuhair Al-Shun, the Palestinian ambassador to Indonesia. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Dear brother, the rector of the university, and all the staff and the administrative, and who are attending this program today, good afternoon, and I'm so happy to be with you today, and thanking you for the kind inviting me to be a part of this program. So, thank you very much for inviting me here to the Department of International Relations at University of Indonesia. I'm very happy to be here at this university, which is known for doing excellent work in studying international relations and helping students understand the world better. I want to thank the faculty and staff here for making this meeting possible. It shows that Indonesian university care about important issues that affects peoples around the world, especially questions about independence, justice, and law, and governing themselves fairly. Today, Excellency, I'm here to introduce a very special guest and colleagues. We are honored to welcome Dr. Sanaa Al-Shun, who is an associate professor of constitutional law at Al-Najah National University in Nablus, Palestine, and West Bank. عارفة حالك. Today, dear brothers, sisters, I'm not going to talk about the law topic because she will be the one who are taking the floor regarding this issue. But about politics or about development in Palestine itself and in the Middle East, I'm ready for any questions about that. So, in this regards, I have to say that Indonesia is always behind Palestinian just cause. And they are always supporting and fighting everywhere for Palestine to be independent. And this is reality. It's not a diplomacy way to talk to you. Because I feel it. If all Palestinians feel it since I'm here more than 8 years, I know these people, how they are thinking about Palestinian just cause. So, I have to say that. Thanks for the presidential, thanks for the government of Indonesia, and thanks for the parliament, for all diplomacy who are giving this kind of support and helping us everywhere, and for Palestinian to be as everybody is living as Indonesian are living. So once again, it's my pleasure, full of thanks. This part I have visited several times, and I give lecture before about many topics, but now the time is for our sister, the associate professor, to say whatever is. She's coming for that, about the constitution, about the Palestinian outlook, and how Indonesian can also give any knowledge or any information to be mixed with the Palestinian constitution, because we feel, really, we feel that we are one and we are one hand, we are always thinking for better solution. Once again, my dear brother, thank you very much, and looking, inshallah, to see all of you, free Palestine, independent Palestine, with East Jerusalem as the capital of Palestine. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Dr. Zuhair Al-Shun, for your insightful and inspiring opening remarks. Now we would like to have a photo session first before we proceed to our next discussion. Together with all of the participants, perhaps the documentation team, photographer, can help us to take pictures from there. Okay. Yeah. 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 Stand up. I think we should stand up just in our place. Okay, on count of 3. Kena semua, Mbak? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, our distinguished guests, for the next session, I will hand over this program to be guided by the moderator, Mr. Agung Nurwijoyo. The floor is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, Honorable Ambassador, His Excellency Dr. Zuhair Al-Shun, Head of Department of International Relations, Dr. Broto Wardoyo, Dr. Sanaa Alsarghali. Welcome to Indonesia. Our esteemed participants, colleagues, welcome to this event. Yeah. Today we held a Studium Generale. The title is the Palestinian Interim Constitutions. And today is very timely situations. Yeah. I mean, we are in the middle of after the post-Gaza war. Yeah. So I think, yeah, we are entering not only talking about the humanities, but also talking about the political and legal situations for the Palestinians. And the second one, we are also entering a situation where the solidarity for the Palestinian is increasingly much more stronger and stronger. Yeah, we see that more than 80% a member of the United Nations already acknowledge for the Palestinians. So I think this is the time for us to talk something much more serious. Yeah. And it means, and when I contacted by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and also Mas Febri to conduct these events, me and Mas Broto, we don't have any other answer except yes. Yeah. Because solidarity to the Palestinian, today we are not only discuss about academic discussion. For me, it's not only academic discussions. This is the manifestation of our solidarity with our Palestinian brothers and sisters. Yeah, the Palestinians not only need solidarity, but they need justice. And one of them, yeah, we are talking about the Constitution itself. And for the background, yeah, in August 2025, President Mahmoud Abbas issued a decree forming 17-member committee to draft the interim constitution. The committee includes legal experts, political figures, and civil society representatives. And so we are exceptionally honored and privileged to have with us distinguished speaker, Dr. Sanaa Alsarghali. She is the scholar of constitutional law, also actively involved as one of the drafter of these interim constitutions. So I think this is very important events today. I invite Dr. Sanaa to the stage. Welcome, Dr. Sanaa.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, please have a seat. Okay. Without further ado, yeah, to help us understanding the legal architecture of this struggle for us, yeah, about the justice, I invited, yeah, our esteemed speaker, Dr. Sanaa. We are eager to learn from you. Please, Dr. Sanaa, the floor is yours. Do you want to talk in the podium or in here?
No, here, I think it's better.
Okay.
I mean, wherever we decide.
Yeah.
Is it better? Because then we can have a conversation.
Yes. Yes, here.
First of all, thank you so much. First of all, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm very honored to be here, very honored to be at this amazing university that I only heard amazing things about it. So to be here in my first visit to Indonesia is very much, how to say, amazing for a lecturer, for like an academic, for a scholar, to visit an academic institution that showcase that academia and excellence in academia can be found in the global south, can be found in Indonesia and not only in the West. So thank you very much for the hard work you have been doing. I would like to thank His Excellency for arranging this, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and of course the University of Indonesia, the International Relations Department. Thank you so much to the head of the International Relations and to you, of course, dear colleague, for moderating this. And of course to the esteemed participants and guests. And I would like to say participants because I really hope that it's going to be a conversation, not only like listening to what I'm going to say, because I'm sure your knowledge of the situation is as equal. As you mentioned, Doctor, and also Doctor, when you were presenting the topic, it is very timely, it's very important, and I have to say, I have been writing about this even before joining the committee. In 2024, we published an article, myself and Professor Nathan Brown together, called Why an Interim Constitution Could Help Palestine. And it was one of the proposals about how an interim constitution could be a tool that Palestinians can use in the day after plans, something that was not even on the table for any discussion. And the idea of it was to showcase that Palestinians can have the agency, can have the tool, can help also in building their own institutions. And in order to do so, I am very happy to talk about the Constitution, but we cannot talk about the Constitution in separation and isolation from what is happening. Because the constitutions, as you know, and as perfectly you did the presentation and the introduction, constitutions are a birth certificate of a nation, as I would like to think of them. Constitutions also a tool for reconciliation. Constitution also do not or should not consider the people as they are. They should imagine how the people should be. And I think this is something you did perfectly in Indonesia. How you imagined your society should be with the harmony, with the different religions that you have and how you address it. So when we talk about the constitution here, we're talking about a tool also for liberation. This is how we should think about it. And of course, maybe we will tackle different questions of why it's an interim constitution, why the Palestinian leadership decided now to do it. But taking into consideration that I'm not quite sure how many of the audience know very much about constitutions, I would like first to give a brief background about the current situation in Palestine for like 5 minutes, then we move to the constitution. So we go to the next slide, please, to just structure the discussion. So I will be giving an overview about Palestine very quickly. Of course, I'm sure this is an audience that knows about Palestine. Then we want to talk a little bit about why it's an interim constitution and all the questions that we addressed. So this is just the structure of the talk today. We'll move to the next slide, and we go to the next slide. Okay. So to me, when we talk about Palestine at the moment, we're talking about lots and lots of uncertainty, as you know. We are entering more than 2 years of war. We're entering also annexation process for the West Bank, the war in Gaza, the genocidal war in Gaza. And actually, as an academic, I never used the term until it was used by the UN, and it was approved by all the society, the genocide experts. And you might wonder why, because Palestine case is not an emotional case. It's a just case. This is why when you use certain terms, you use them because also, it's not because I'm Palestinian I'm using them, because they were approved that they are. So there is the second year and a half of the war. We're talking about annexation of the West Bank, regardless of what you hear in the media, that annexation is not happening. It is happening. I live in a city in the north. Basically now there are gates. You cannot exit or enter your city unless you exit and enter in certain times. So let's assume that if I'm coming from Jakarta to this side, right, there is a gate that opens and closes at certain time. So annexation is real. And this new project that is happening in Palestine by the Israeli government is to isolate Palestinian cities. So what is happening in a city where I live, Nablus, I teach in Nablus, where I live sometimes, but I teach in Nablus and I live in Tulkarem, which are two close cities. Usually, it's 30 minutes a drive. If you're a bad driver like me, 45, 50 minutes. Now it takes 2 hours. Take 2 hours because of the subsidiary roads, because of the gates. So the checkpoints are there since forever. But now it's the new thing, the gates, right? So the idea is to isolate Palestinian cities. So what is happening in your city, you should only care about it. You don't care what is happening in the other city because there is so much happening. So this is the kind of project, isolating Palestinian cities, right? And then there is the situation of East Jerusalem that is so sad. And I will go into it. So whenever I talk about Palestine, I like to start with this quote. Because our memories and what we are talking about is not to offend anyone. It's just to show what is really happening. And I think we have this kind of shared history of how to fight colonization, right? And I think this project, the Israeli apartheid, colonization, project is happening for so long in Palestine. But now the policies are shifting in a very, very dangerous way. So if we go to the next slide, please. Yeah, next slide. So Palestinians, as I said, there are the different issues that they are trying to create, so you only care about your cities, and that is the division of the geography. But also, there is this idea of dividing Palestinians according to their ideas. So if we go to the next slide, we will see, I live, as I mentioned, in the West Bank, right? So the ID, the national ID I hold, in the next slide, it's a green ID. The Palestinians who live in Gaza, they also have a green ID, right? The ones who live in East Jerusalem, they have a blue ID. And now it's more or less a residence permit. But these kind of IDs, they give you different rights and different accesses. So this whole project was really about having this division between Palestinians, right? Having like this kind of isolation with the ID. So if we go to the next slide. Everybody talks about the fact that Gaza is the open-air prison, as you hear, and it is. But also the West Bank is an open-air prison. The people who live the Palestinians who live in East Jerusalem, that His Excellency mentioned, hopefully, inshallah, it will be like the capital of Palestine. But the Palestinians who live in East Jerusalem, every day they face the fear of leaving their houses because they face house demolition. Imagine. You are here in this amazing university. You leave your home, you leave your house, you leave your accommodation and come. The Palestinians there, they are scared to leave. You know what? Because of this code. This is something we conducted in 2021, even before the war. So now imagine how the situation. This is from an amazing woman that she was trying to continue her master's degree, right, with her sister who's at school. And they're always scared to leave their house because they think a million times before they're leaving their house in order not to be demolished. And if we go to the next slide, so I live in Tulkarem, as I mentioned. And Tulkarem, like Jenin, like all the cities in the north, they have camps. Those are the Palestinians who got displaced from 1948 areas. So after the war, or during the war now, all those Palestinians are being displaced from the camps to go where? To be displaced to other like cities, to be displaced. And this is why we are so scared as Palestinians, because those Palestinians, they are benefiting very much from UNRWA, the agency that provides education for them and services. And as you know, there has been a huge attack on UNRWA to cut down its services. So it is kind of like severe situation. If we go to the next slide, we will see the attack, or everything that I was trying to say is that there is an attack on the Palestinian identity, because education is very much connected to Palestinian identity. I am one of those generation I was born in 1987. That's the first uprising era, the first intifada, right? Before even the arrival of the Palestinian Authority and Mr. Yasser Arafat and all. But I never got to learn or taught the Palestinian textbooks because we didn't have that. That was a pure occupation, right? So I had to learn from other textbooks. I had to learn from the Jordanian textbooks. That was the only thing available. We were not allowed to draw our Palestinian map in the class. The teachers had to come 1 hour in advance to teach us how to draw the Palestinian map and teach us about the indigenous names of the Palestinian cities. This is why I salute the Palestinian teachers because of that. And I think also in Indonesia you have this culture of appreciation, giving appreciation to the teachers, because I think this is important. So this is a quote from a long research I've conducted about Palestinian identity and the attack of the Palestinian identity. Whenever you talk about Palestinians, they're always connected to politics, they're always connected to sadness, to struggle. But Palestinian identity is bigger than that. And one of the quotes, I mean, I will leave you to read this quote, but am I allowed to just take a minute to read something from it? So part of Palestine's identity is the feeling of loss, which is true. The shared struggle and unstable political history which creates a long-lasting belonging to a safe home. Part of it is a mix of identity between what you are and what you should give back to your community, of course. As a Palestinian, you always feel that you have to give back to your identity, to your people, because that's part of your identity. It's the tolerance. It doesn't matter if you're Palestinian Muslim or if you're Palestinian Christian, you share the same sweets in your celebrations. It's the feeling of other sufferings. If you believe in the Palestinian case, then you believe that every oppressed nation should be liberated. This is how Palestinians feel. They feel that oppression is not something that should be accepted anywhere. And of course, it's a shared identity that can be passed from those who were born during Nakba, First Intifada, Second Intifada, and even this generation. Why I am talking about this? Because when we talk about constitution, we're talking about a document that will also honor the identity of the nation. We're talking about a document that will speak to the Palestinian people, that will speak to the Palestinians who are in the West Bank, in Gaza, in East Jerusalem, and honor and respect those who are in the diaspora. Of course, when we talk about constitution, we're also talking about limitation, jurisdiction, that it can govern those who live under its jurisdiction. However, with the Palestinian constitution, there is also a little bit of aspiration that it should also speak to those who live in the diaspora. So as you mentioned, going now to the talk, as you mentioned, basically the International Court of Justice had its advisory opinion talking about the long-lasting occupation that should be over, and it even gave a deadline, as you know, in September. And from that advisory opinion, all those countries that, well, they still would like to honor and respect international law, international principles, came together with the idea of the New York Declaration. So we should never understand the New York Declaration without its connection to the international, like to the ICJ advisory opinion, because there is this connection between them, right? And from that kind of like connection, the New York Declaration came with this track of the recognition of a Palestinian state. And of course, we are very thankful for the support of Indonesia and the fact that Indonesia recognized Palestine as a state. But this recognition also comes with quite obstacles, as we know. Because, and that's not, of course, from countries, brothers and sisters like Indonesia, but from the whole international community that gave the recognition, it gave a conditional recognition, as you know, with certain things that has to be done. And of course, on the top of them is the following. A change of the Palestinian textbooks. This is why I was talking about it. Secondly, Palestinians should go for elections, general elections. And of course, reforming the Palestinian Authority. So, before even New York Declaration, because of course there was the preparation for the New York Declaration and the conditions, etc. In 25th of August, a presidential decree was issued to appoint a drafting committee for an interim constitution. And this interim constitution will be the base for general elections. This is why it's so important. It's important because it will be the document that will pave the way for the general elections. Just to clarify, when we talk about reforms, elections, revising textbooks, these are Palestinian demands, Palestinian desires, but in different ways. Because when we talk about textbooks, nobody doesn't want to include AI, digital rights, be up to date. But nobody likes also to come and say, like, you cannot talk about X, Y, Z because this is against, or this is promoting violence. Look, I had a look because I also sit on the committee of revising the Palestinian curricula. And to me, like, I really think it's the Palestinians, there is, of course, there is the official statement that is happening, which is revising the curricula according to UNESCO standards. But I have to say that Palestinian textbooks are those that they teach you about who you are without any violence, right? So it's very important to notice that whenever there is a need to talk about AI, etc., that's a Palestinian demand. But whenever there is more, this is a matter of discussion, and we can discuss it later. Then the second one is about the general elections. I think all Palestinians, they want general elections. They're asking for it. Palestinians, even after the arrival of the Palestinian Authority in 1994, they went all the way to even have elections for the president, which, by the way, Mr. Arafat at the time, they didn't need like elections to get the legitimacy. He was already the chairman of the Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO. That's a liberation movement. You get your legitimacy from there anyway. But then, because of the Oslo Accords and the signing of the Oslo Accords, as you know, there was a need to go for elections. So the Palestinians went for elections in 1994, 1996 for the first parliamentary elections, legislative council elections. And within that time, the Palestinians, they even drafted their first basic law, which is a transitional constitutional document. But of course, that transitional document comes from the Oslo Accords. It was a demand from the Oslo Accords. And it was a very limited document because it only talked about a transitional period that should have ended in 1999. And it should govern only the first legislative council. So that was it. But of course, of course, the transitional period never ended. Then in 2000, up to 2002, we had the second uprising. And then, 2003, there was a huge international intervention within even that basic law with the roadmap peace agreement asking the Palestinians to change their political system and add a prime minister position. The basic law itself never really talked about this type of political system. So in 2003, our political system transferred from parliamentary one to a semi-presidential system. And for those who are experienced with semi-presidential system, this is a kind of hybrid system. Well, I don't like to use hybrid, but I use it in a way to make it easier. It's a kind of system that you don't use it unless you have stable political parties. It causes problems in the countries that invented it. It caused the problem until now in France, and etc., etc. So that was the basic law, right? Then again, Palestinians went for second elections, and it was listed as one of the transparent democratic elections in 2006. Of course, the results were not as the international community wanted when Hamas won the majority of the elections, and Palestinians had to live 1 year without salaries because the result did not match with the international community demand. And of course, as you know, there was the clash between Hamas and Fatah, then etc. So that's the story. So from 2006 until now, Palestinians, firstly, they had suspended legislative council, then later on it got dissolved by the Constitutional Court. So talking about general elections is a demand, Palestinian demand. And even the Palestinian leadership called for elections in 2021. There was a preparation. And I can tell you, so many lists and political parties, political factions wanted to participate in such elections. However, you cannot go for elections when one of the elections, within the elections saying that Palestinians in East Jerusalem cannot vote. So that means if you go for general elections, those who live in East Jerusalem, according to because that was the restriction from the Israeli government, East Jerusalem Palestinians cannot participate in the elections. That means you're cutting them out. This is why elections got postponed in 2021. Then the war occurred. 2 years of war, 2 years of annexations, 2 years of extremely sad situation. So why talking about an interim constitution? Why the leadership would, within this kind of mess, why would you go to talk about interim constitution? If we go 2 slides, please. This is, of course, the New York Declaration, the initiators of the New York Declaration, if we go. This is, of course, why would you go for an interim constitution? Look, when New York Declaration occurred and the recognition of the Palestinian state happened, let's be a bit specific here. As I mentioned, we have the Palestine Liberation Organization, the PLO, the liberation movement, that represents Palestinians wherever they are, West Bank, Gaza, East Jerusalem, the ones in the diaspora. This is how it should be. Then, of course, the Oslo Accord Accords, 1993 up to 1995. The Oslo Accords, of course, the result is creating self-governing authority for the Palestinians who live inside West Bank and Gaza and East Jerusalem, and that's the Palestinian Authority. So the PLO should have always been for the Palestinian Authority, the big umbrella, and the Palestinian Authority is inside. The PLO has its own constitution, which is the national charter for it. Then the Palestinian Authority has its own constitution, which is the basic law I mentioned, which got drafted in 1996. 1997, then it got ratified in 2002. Then this state that everybody recognized in New York Declaration, this is a new entity, right? This is a new thing. What is its legal mandate? What is the legal document that will govern it? Nothing yet. This is why an interim constitution was designed. Because when we talk about this new legal entity, then we're talking about something that has to structure it. You cannot use the basic law because that is for a Palestinian Authority. That's not for a state. You cannot use the national charter for the PLO because that is for the PLO. It talks about something different. Then we're talking about this new entity. It's a state, but be careful. It's a state under occupation. This is why it's an interim constitution. It's a state, a new state, right? A new state. Then we're talking about institutions for this state. Again, you cannot come and say, in new institutions, then you neglect everything that happened. This is why it's a transition from the Palestinian Authority, the self-governing authority institutions, into statehood institutions. This is why, again, it's an interim one, because you need a period of a transition. Also, it's an appointed committee. This is the first criticism. Let's be realistic. I'm also a constitutional law scholar, you know, like, it's not, I'm gonna say, of course, it's an appointed committee. There will be criticism. So you cannot come and say, let's draft a permanent one. Impossible. It's an interim constitution because you need to structure the new entity. And you need to do it with certain steps. Interim constitutions, if we go, dear lady or dear mister, yeah. When we talk about new entities and interim constitutions and drafting them, we can go with two options. Plan A or position A, we wait until sovereignty is achieved. And then we can start a permanent constitution. Or we go for position B, and we must act as if there is sovereignty. Absolutely, we know there is no sovereignty, but we can act, and we start talking about human rights. We start talking about like the reforming of the Constitutional Court. We start talking about all these kind of things, and we are trying to use this interim constitution as sovereignty exists, but we know in reality it does not. But we need to structure the institutions. So which option would you go for? Again, as an academic, I have a position. This is aside from the committee. I always would go for position B. We wrote about it. I wrote a whole paper. Like I wrote 2 papers about it before even the idea was there. Because I believe Palestinian institutions have been neglected for the past 30 years. The United States never ever enhanced the strengthening of Palestinian institutions. And then when the war happened, actually before the war, in 2003, they said, add a prime minister position, changing the whole political system. Then when the war occurred, they come and they said, during the Biden administration, let's empower the prime minister, Palestinian Authority reform its institutions. So they always got interested in institutions when it matters. So when we talk about interim institutions as a Palestinian product, a Palestinian idea, we are giving back the agency to the Palestinians. They are the ones that they are designing now the transition and the move from Palestinian Authority institutions to statehood institutions, right? If we go to the slide, please, next slide. So again, this is a design of a constitution, an interim one, pre-sovereign scenarios. It says that legitimacy, because as I said, it's an appointed committee, that it will require certain steps that I will refer to. Of course, and institutions will be done precisely later on. If we move to the next slide. Then why an interim constitution? I think I mentioned it very briefly, but just to emphasize, it's an interim one because sovereignty is not there. Territorial fragmentation, as I mentioned, there is the separation between all the aspects. Then we're talking about interrupted electoral legitimacy, as I mentioned, in 2021. And of course, there is the occupation. So when we talk about full one, it's not really the time for it. So why does it matter? Because also an interim constitution in this case is not about elite capture. It's about different things. This is why one of the philosophy for drafting this interim constitution was two things: the transparency of the process, and of course public participation. And you can ask me how and why we can do this. So let me tell you a little bit. So the idea of this interim constitution is to be formed not only from constitutional drafters or constitutional experts. It is formed from judges, politicians, constitutional law scholars, 3 of us, and lawyers, civil society actors. The idea of it is really to, as you mentioned, dear doctor, at the beginning of your introduction, this is not only a legal document, it's a political document. It's like a pure political document, right? So, but not in a pure political document in the sense it's not respecting the rule of law, no. In the sense that it's a statement. It's a statement, and that kind of a statement, you cannot only have it, in my, all respect to myself and constitutional lawyer, you need the political input. You need to say like, okay, this is how it works in theory, but let's think of ABC, because in reality it is like this. So I think there is this harmony in that committee. In terms of public participation, of course, this is a committee that is appointed, but the drafting did not and is not occurring in closed rooms like this. Of course, we sit in a closed room, but it's not like this. It's about having public consultation in 2 steps. So all the section about human rights was not, so the work has been divided into subcommittees. So the 17 members were divided into different subcommittees. So I was heading the subcommittee of the preamble, the basic, the principles, the basic principles, the amendment, and the transitional articles. So that was the subcommittee I'm heading. Yes, so that's a complicated one. And of course, it's a collective work. So the committees, the subcommittees had to go, meet, consult, then come back with what they've done. Then there was a technical committee from the legal experts alone to draft, and after that, of course, it goes to the linguistics, etc. And now we are in the process of discussion. And after we finish this discussion, it will be sent and put into an interactive platform that was created. So the document will be published, and that document that will be published will be with interactive discussion, right, with the Palestinians. And before and after this kind of discussion, there is a preparation, and this is very important, for civic education campaign. This is very important because we said Palestinians from 2006 up to now, they never voted. So the students like here that I'm teaching at Najah, maybe they never actually went to a voting process. So you have to give them the proper civic education. So videos were created to reach out to those. Not everybody knows what constitutional law or why they should be part of this constitutional law process or constitution making process. So basically civic education has been prepared. And by the way, with different colleagues in the past, we've done it way before. We've done it in 2019 in the preparation for it. And if we go to the next slide, basically, this is the theory. I'm just, you can read it. I'm just telling you how the theory we applied it to our work. So there is, of course, public access. So anybody who wants to know will know because of that interactive platform. Then, of course, there will be a published consultation report. So every article that got drafted, it will have more or less a memorandum, like explaining why it was debated. Because of course, you know, like it's a memory of what happened. And again, of course, you expect, as any drafting committee that is appointed, that it will be challenged by the people. Those who doesn't want a transition maybe to happen, those who believe that a national conversation should take place before even. And I have to say, in order to be frank, as an academic, in our paper we said first there should be a national conversation, then, but the reality of it that this national conversation is very hard to achieve and happen now. So you go to plan B, which is like you appoint a committee, but you don't appoint it and you close door on it. You have the public consultation. So you can go from this to that. As long as there is public consultation, believe me, then there is a way to give legitimacy, right? And the last step, and this is, of course, I cannot discuss content of the draft because it not has been published out of respect to the Palestinians because it's not published. I can talk with you about the process because the process matters as much as the content, in my opinion. Of course, the content matters a lot, but the process itself to reach is very important. I have to say, we did agree, and this is very public knowledge now, that this draft will go into a referendum. But it will go into a referendum after the civic education. Because you don't want to face the fact that people say yes or no, because this is the most democratic process. But you have to give knowledge to people first. This is the most democratic way, in my opinion, as I speak from constitutional background. I very much fear referendums without education or public consultation. So that has been agreed. If we go to the next slide, in order to wrap up. And of course, this is again, this is again, it's as you mentioned, Doctor, it's really about a message, sending a message as well. When you talk about interim constitution in a context, a pre-sovereign context, and we're talking also about delivering messages. You're talking about, and this is again my opinion, this is not the committee, this is from my article with Nathan Brown, when we talked about it as a tool for the day after. It's about how governance is structured by the Palestinians, who has the authority, because this is a showcasing that Palestinians can be in charge of it, and then what kind of legal commitments shapes the exercise of power, and this is something you showcase also in an interim constitution. The next slide. And the last one. Yeah, so what can be done? If we go. I think the case I try to present very quickly is to showcase that we always look at the day after plans in terms of power, in terms of who's gonna come next, in terms of things that we cannot control really. But this is a tool and a way that Palestinians can control. That's why I think it's very interesting, because this is something in our hands. And this is something that showcased that this new entity that could recognize, showing to the world that we are reliable. I think it's also the turn that in this time it's the world's turn to show similar trust to the Palestinians. Look, the recognition happened without any sanctions to the Israeli government actions. The recognition happened with so many conditions. And of course, conditions that maybe I will leave it to His Excellency, to the politicians to discuss, but as an academic, and I have to emphasize this is my position as an academic. As an academic, to me, this is a very valuable tool that Palestinians can use to show that they can decide their destiny. And it's very different than the Basic Law. The Basic Law, of course, it was drafted by the first elected Legislative Council, but it was a product of the Oslo Accords. It was never addressing this new Palestinian entity. This is a manifesto. This is a tool for the new state that could recognize and is still under occupation. I like to end with a hopeful note. And I think this process needs all the support, the Palestinians and the international community, to recognize it, not to interfere in it, because it's a pure Palestinian work, but to recognize it, to talk about it, to showcase that those Palestinians, they are struggling to initiate and structure their institutions while they are still living under all the severe conditions I mentioned. And I thank you very much, and I will stop here to allow time for discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sanaa, for your detailed and heartfelt presentation. We much more understand about the reason behind why the Palestinian today needs interim constitution itself. But before we open for the Q&A sessions, I invite Mas Ivan to, we have, Dr. Sanaa have a video to introduce about her own university.
Yeah, can I say why?
Okay.
Because I thought after my talk, and because I mentioned the attack on academic institutions and institutions, it's very important to tell you what kind of institutions we have. Unfortunately, I don't have a video for the universities that got destroyed in Gaza, but I have a video for my own university to just give you a little bit of hope of how academia looks like in Palestine. So yeah, that's all.
Thank you, Dr. Sanaa. Please, Mas Ivan. Interim constitutions, for me, it's also a vessel of hope. Yeah, it's like give you such a direction where your countries, your visions, yeah, we're gonna be. Yeah. So I openly now to the audience, if you have any feedback, questions to Dr. Sanaa, please. 1, 2, okay. 3, okay, 3 audience.
Okay, first of all, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Ms. Sanaa and the moderator. So first of all, I'm so overwhelmed about your university. It's so nice place. I wish maybe we can there and visit the university. It's so very detailed.
Your name?
Oh yeah, sorry, I'm sorry. My name is Alwi Akbar. Actually, I'm just graduate a couple months ago from Universitas Indonesia in different faculty, Middle East Studies. Yes. So I just wanna wondering about your detail about the constitution, because you were concerned about the diplomatic recognition in term of the conditions. So you're concerned about the identity and so on and so on and so on. So I just wondering, as a Palestinian, what the whole imagination philosophy of the government system in the Palestinian, and what's so different between a Palestinian, inshallah, and the other region in Levant or Sham? It's just a silly question from me, but.
Sorry, but I did not get the first half of it. What was the first half? I got the second half. What was the first half?
Huh? Sorry?
The first half, what was it? No, it's not a silly question at all. The second half, I got it. What was the first half?
Yeah, I just wondering about the philosophy, imagination of the Palestinian people.
The philosophy.
Yes, I mean, like role, the government system in the Palestinian. I'm sorry, I just confused. Yeah, yeah. And the different maybe with other sub-region in Sham. That's what I mean, actually. Yes. Yeah. So I hope you understand all my questions. Thank you. Shukran. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Sanaa. My name is Akbar Yunugroho. I'm from Department of History in the Faculty of Humanities in the UI. My first question is, although we know that many countries still have recognized Palestine today, many countries and still counting. I want to ask: is the real constitution, the next constitution, is pressing about the territorial integrity of the Palestine? I mean that is the planning is must taking place about what is the Palestine will be. It's maybe consists of West Bank, the West Bank, the Gaza, and East Jerusalem. And the second is I concern about the foreign relation. Palestine, in my mind, is always still and always a sovereign and independent nation. How about the importance? What do you think about the importance of foreign relation to other power, especially to the P5 of the United Nations Security Council? And what the mission? What the foreign? Foreign policy to the next constitution in the next constitution. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Ajit Sandi Harahap. I'm from Satyagama University. My nickname is Sandi. Actually, my English is not very good. I'm still beginner. But I want to asking, is there a risk that governing while waiting unintentionally normalize a permanent lack of sovereignty for Palestine? That is my question. Thank you.
Boleh pakai bahasa Indonesia aja, Mas Sandi.
Apakah ada risiko dalam menerapkan governing while waiting dibahas tadi sambil maaf, saya ulangi ya. Yang ingin ditanyakan itu adalah Apakah ada risiko bahwa pemerintah sambil menunggu secara tidak sengaja membuka ketidakberdaulatan permanen bagi Palestina menjadi hal yang normal?
Sip, okay, I got the point. Yeah. Okay, please, Dr.
So first of all, thank you for the difficult questions. You know, like I tried to be as basic as possible because I was not quite sure what to expect in terms of like the interest in the content.
Yeah, this is the biggest curiosity today.
Okay, but you do know in any drafting committee, I can tell you stuff as an academic, and of course I can tell you as about the process as a member. But before the draft is published, I can answer you for the things that got published, but I think out of the respect for the Palestinians, I cannot talk that much about the content, but I will be very frank in the answers, okay? So the first question about the form of government, because that was your question, if I'm correct. So the form of government is something that we already published. This is an interim constitution. It's not going to come and change the form of government. It's not going to come and choose a different political system, but it will structure the political system. How? As I mentioned to you, in 2003, the Palestinians, the prime minister position got imposed on them. The original design of the basic law was talking about a parliamentary system, but of course, due to the nature that we had a charismatic leader at the time, the father of the nation, Mr. Arafat, to some extent, the document talked about parliamentary system, but the practice was more or less presidential. Then in 2003, the international actors, basically the roadmap, peace plan, which was from the United States, the Quartet, which involved Russia, UN, they came and they said, we don't want this one person to be deciding. We want to have a prime minister position. But then how to adjust that? The Legislative Council at the time added the position, but did not draw the balance. Because let's be frank, this is a new experience. We were talking about the first time Palestinians, they were drafting a constitutional document. So this drafting committee, we had debates, but that is my opinion, and this is something that is also very important. You cannot come and change the political system. It's an interim one. It's an interim document. What you can do is that you have certain actors in your political system. You should have a parliament or a legislative council. There is a president and there is a prime minister, right? So the combination of them is still a semi-presidential system because all the demands, this is why I'm telling you it's a time for the Palestinians to be the proper agent of their destiny. The demands from the US was about empowering the prime minister. Then we're talking about a president and a prime minister that they both together enjoy the executive authority powers. This is a semi-presidential system when you have the executive authority split between two heads, a prime minister and a president. This committee task is really to structure this, to ensure that you put all the scenarios and how to overcome any potential deadlock. In 2006, when it was the Palestinian political deadlock between Hamas and Fatah, right? Because of the international intervention. And I guess this is what you want to know more about. So I'll give it to you. Okay. Then I'll give it to you again. To quote, this is my opinion as an academic. And I wrote about it. So it's published. You can look, my name, you can read it. So basically, I'll give you, because I know that the question was about that internally. Okay, got it. So when 2006 happened between Hamas and Fatah, the basic law, the Palestinian basic, everybody looked at it from a political standpoint. To me, it was also constitutional deadlock because the basic law talked about that the president has the right to dissolve the government, to dismiss the government, not the parliament, to dismiss the government, to appoint another prime minister. That's his right. But it never gave the president the ability to dissolve the parliament if the parliament cannot meet or fail to meet. And in a classical semi-presidential system, the president has the right to dissolve the parliament in case the parliament fails to meet. But how to dissolve? To call for elections, early elections. That was never designed because it was imposed without enough time to design it. So to me, if the basic law had the proper balance, then maybe elections would have taken place because the parliament could not meet, there was international pressure. then maybe we wouldn't have been having this political deadlock. Maybe, we don't know, but that could have been a scenario. So when we're talking about the design and the hope for a design, then you also have to think of different scenarios and how to dissolve them, right? And this kind of political system is different because speaking about the region, in Tunisia, they aimed to do semi-presidential system, but they couldn't do it. In 2014, that was the design, then later on it became super presidential system. So it's different design. In Egypt, it's different design. So the design that is taking place, which I'm not going to tell you the content, I'm going to tell you about it in general. It's basically a design that is trying to dissolve any kind of political issue if it occurs. And of course, this is very important. Going to the next question. Thank you, so I hope I answered you. Going to the next question, which was the question about the territorial, yes, the recognition and the territorial and how we address it. Look, this is an interim constitution again, right? So when we talk about Palestine, we're talking about and actually this is the Palestinian leadership and the Palestinian position, we're talking about two-state solution, right? The New York Declaration itself is based on the idea that it's a two-state solution. And this is very different peace track from a Trump plan, because the Trump plan or the peace plan in Gaza does not even mention the two-state solution. And of course, maybe the other question, since you're a historian, would be like, what is left from the two-state solution? What is left from the 1967 borders, right? I'm telling you, there is an annexation process, but there is also diplomacy that has to take place, and there is a belief that it's a just case, and there is a belief that any future constitution or legal document should be based on international tool and the respect of international law, international tools. And of course, just to clarify, this interim constitution is based also and recognizes the 1988 Declaration of Independence, right? So all comes together that we're talking about the two-state solution, we're talking about the borders of 1967, right? So this is very important to acknowledge, because that's the base of the two-state solution. Whichever is taken away, that's the fault of the Israeli government. That's on their behalf. That's the responsibility of the international community to ensure that the 1967 borders are respected. This is also a pressuring tool to talk about it, right? What about the international and how the foreign relations is being addressed? This is the question. Well, constitutions are mostly about the internal dynamics, the governing of the jurisdiction that they govern. And of course, once the government is formed, and I guess your question, what will happen to the PLO? What will happen to this future state? How are they going to interact? Because at the moment, you have Palestinian missions in certain places, while others, they have Palestinian, the status of an embassy, etc., etc. So look, I mean, the constitution cannot come and say how the foreign relations would be. Of course, as any constitution in the world, it gives like the right to who can appoint ambassadors. Of course, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, what kind of like duties it will have, that will be in the law of the, of the cabinet, the ministries, etc. But it can only talk about the fact that there will be a representation of this Palestinian state, and this Palestinian state, hopefully, will be the one talking on behalf of all the Palestinians. But still, it's a state under occupation. So of course, there will be rule for the PLO at certain point, to a certain point, right? I hope I answered. I know I'm a bit vague in certain aspects, but I cannot. Yeah. The last one. That is actually, by the way, thank you for speaking in English. I spent 3 terms teaching in English in France, and I hardly spoke good French. So thank you so much for your bravery to speak in English. That is very much appreciated. Your question is excellent. It's about governance and waiting and what is the danger for doing that. And I think that is the danger for any transition. When we're talking about a transition and when that actual transition will be over, this is what I meant by the waiting. This is the first thing. So the process of drafting a constitution, interim one, first of all, after you finish, there will be time for public consultation. There will be time to put it for a referendum. And again, we don't know what will be the backlash when this is over. Again, this is drafting. As I said, there will be, of course, backlash from those Palestinians inside that they don't want this to happen. Normal, because this is an appointed committee, and I told you, we overcame it with the legitimacy process, with the public consultation and all. And you would expect, of course, there will be backlash of how the referendum will be done, because how to involve the Palestinians. And if there will be an actual referendum with voting, and you have to do it physically, not online, how to manage that, because that by itself is a discussion. So when the transition will be over, it's a complicated question. And that's what I meant by, you write while there is a governance in waiting, because there are so many issues that are still not resolved, similar to your colleague question about the borders, similar to the other questions about will it be accepted, what kind of form of government that will be put out on the table. Similar also to the second part of the question when it was about the foreign diplomacy, how many countries will actually, yes, they recognize, but they didn't yet updated the status of the Palestinian missions into embassies. And they are waiting for the conditions to be fulfilled in order to say, well, this is the state we recognize. But even when they say this is the state that we recognize, what about on the ground, the borders, that they are not doing anything in order to ensure we don't lose them? So when I say governance in waiting, it is quite risky, yes, because the transition nobody can foresee when it will be over. But still, it's worth a trial. It's really worth a try to start establishing the process, to start talking about how the transition. So I can give you a glimpse of the content because you really want to. So we have a constitutional court in Palestine, and I had the pleasure of meeting your constitutional court yesterday. So one of the things, this is an institution, but this is an institution for the Palestinian Authority that it was a test how it functions, etc. Now, part of the design for the interim constitution is how to create the transition from that constitutional court when it was belonging to the Palestinian Authority into new constitutional court until it is formed, where everything that was overlooked in the past can be fixed, right? This is why you need the transitional articles in this interim constitution. And those actually the hardest section in any constitution. What to keep, what to remove from the current institutions, how to upgrade them. For example, one of the brilliant things we did in this interim constitution is to create guarantor institutions. For example, the National Commission for Human Rights, it was mentioned in the basic law, but it was never really constitutionalized. So let's assume Palestinians lose everything after the interim constitution. They are not allowed to go for elections. At least you ensure there is institutions that are being protected by the constitution and nobody can dissolve them. Similar to the election committee. So I hope I answered this. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sanaa. Please give applause to Dr. Sanaa. But before closing the sessions, short answer, Dr. Sanaa. You have a long journey from Nablus to Jakarta, right? Yeah. What's your expectation by having gathering in here, sharing about the importance of Palestinian interim constitutions? What's your expectations?
So first of all, this is part of my academic trip. Okay. And I really wanted to come to Indonesia. It's one of the countries I really wanted to study since my area of specialization is constitutional design. And I really respect how the Constitution of Indonesia captured the different religions that you have, talked about harmony. I think harmony is the right word, if I may say. It's extremely difficult because constitutions are usually a tool for unity or a tool for division. And I loved how your constitution was a tool of unity. So this is my academic selfishness that I wanted to do this journey because all the time we are advised when we study and we write about constitutional design to borrow examples from the West. For me, because I'm writing this book about building a Palestinian constitution, I really wanted to look at the examples that I looked at them from afar, but I never had the chance to visit the country, and Indonesia was on the top of that. In Palestine, Muslims and Christians live also in harmony. There is the respect, the tolerance, the shared political history. So to me, it seemed like coming to Indonesia would be the right way to study your constitutional design. And of course, to give you a different aspect about what's happening in Palestine. There is Palestinian agency. There is a process that goes beyond what is happening on the top of the war and the annexation. And I think this is very important. In addition, why this university in particular? As an academic, I heard a lot about the University of Indonesia. I wanted to have the pleasure of meeting colleagues. And also, I think it's always important to meet students. Those questions that you asked, by the way, they were brilliant. But of course, if I do have some limitations just because I am sitting on the committee, because I cannot speak on behalf of the committee with every single details, even though the committee is very happy that I'm in Indonesia, learning about Indonesia. But again, I'm not speaking on behalf of the committee. But the questions that you asked are very, very valid. And I'm sorry I cannot answer very much the details or the content, but I hope once the document is published, we can have another visit talking about it in huge details when also the semester is back, because I really appreciate, I know how it's hard to come when the semester is over. So I hope I answered, and by the way, yesterday when I was in the Constitutional Court, for me, I also studied the design of your Constitutional Court, and to have this kind of conversation to understand how it actually functions in reality, what kind of challenges they have based on the design was extremely, extremely helpful. So thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much. Give applause to Dr. Sanaa. Okay, and to our audience, thank you for your active participations. And I think this is the end of these sessions. Thank you again, Dr. Sanaa, for your enlightenment about the interim constitution of the Palestinians. May our knowledge turn into the meaningful action. Okay, thank you. And I shared, oh yeah, we have appreciations to Dr. Sanaa. Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so
Dr.
much.
Sanaa.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I guess we have a friend in common.
Okay.
We have Stefan Lacroix, our friend, right? You know him. I have a friend. He told me he knows you. Stefan Lacroix.
Wait. Okay.
To say
Dr. Sanaa, please.
Once again, I would like to say thanks for all of you, and thanks for our sister, Dr. Sanaa, for the lecture and for this presentation she have talked about it. But I need to say, my dear, and to be well known to all of you, that Indonesia is a big country and great, in my opinion. It was for 350 years under control by Netherlands colonization and become independent and become developed country because it's free. Palestine is the Holy Land, and that part in the map of the world, I think it's the most significant and most important part all over the world because it's mentioned in Quran. It's not from me. That's why, my dear brothers, sisters, all colonization since history, they try to control that part. but they have been defeated there. The last, which is Israel, settlement occupation, supported by United States and other European parts. This is the fact. No one can ignore it. And still, we are under control. Still, we cannot able to do our ability, our activity, even clean water, which is from our properties, we cannot able to use because of the colonization of Israel. I need to say that Constitution, there is for PLO and for this for a state of Palestine since long time. There is who need to make modification for that because they need to give, a new ideology for Israel and for other international community. This is a politics issue. But this depends on a Palestinian. They will accept or they will not accept. They are a brother or sister mentioning about two-state solution. Two-state solution, it has been over. Why? Yasser Arafat, rahimahullah, the great leader who have accepted that. But he have been assassinated, poisoned. Everybody knows the story. He was sharing with Ishaq Rabin, who have been killed by them, not Palestinian. Why? Because they don't need to reach for any initiative, any peace treaty. And this is the fact. Oslo occurred since 93, and now we are coming to 26, more than 30 years. And they are talking two-state solution. Go and see Palestinian territory. Go and see the mountain. Go and see the river there. It is all controlled by settlers. How the two-state solution can be implemented? We have accepted and we have welcomed that to reach for peace. But the other part, I'm always talking that it's our enemy. And this is the truth. Because they are anti-peace and working against peace. This fact should be very clear for everybody who are here or who are listening wherever in Indonesia or everywhere. This is my opinion, because what I have seen on the, she was talking, a doctor, about Tulkarm. Tulkarm, it's my city. I born there. I learned there. I studied there. And then I went out. I used to go from time to time. Nablus, it's near to me. But what I'm seeing now is completely different. I can go from here to Bugur easy. I can go to Bandung. I can go to Tangerang, wherever places I can go easy. It's a matter of only traffic jam. But there is no traffic jam. There is restrictions, checkpoints, soldiers, settlers on the street to kill anyone. See the differences. So once we are talking about the hope, dear brothers, sisters, we have to take in consideration all these facts. International community, they are absent. No justice. No justice. It's not only to talk. Talking, if it will give any result, it can be accepted. But with these people who are there, talking with them will not give any response. I don't want to give any more lecture and to talk about Indonesia, to talk about Palestine, to talk about development in the history with Yasser Arafat till now, with our President Mahmoud Abbas, what he's dreaming to reach, and calling Israeli side to come to sit on the table. But no one is listening for that. So, once again, my dear brother, thank you very much for arranging and for your attention. This gives me very important result that we are together fighting for one goal, to help Palestinians and to get Palestine free and independent with East Jerusalem. One time, just to end, Retno Marsoudi, the foreign minister, this great lady, she called American ambassador in Jakarta and give him information that Indonesia will not accept Jerusalem to be united capital for Israel. This is for Indonesia is not accepted. Imagine, this is Indonesia. And really, with full of thanks for all of you and for your government, inshallah, all of you will visit Jerusalem and you will pray in Al-Aqsa and to see that land and the Holy Land. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Distinguished guests, respected speakers, faculty members, and dear participants in the room and also in the YouTube live streaming. As we come to the end of today's session, on behalf of the organizing committee, Center for International Relations Studies, Universitas Indonesia, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to all speakers and participants for their presence and valuable contributions to this Studium Generale. We would especially like to thank His Excellency Dr. Zuhair Al-Shun, the Palestinian ambassador to Indonesia, and also Dr. Broto Wardoyo, Head of Department of International Relations, and also Deputy Director of Center for International Relations Studies, Dr. Asra Virgianita, for the presence in this events today. I would like to apologize for any shortcomings during the event. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Have a pleasant afternoon.